The baby refused to move his hands from his stomach. When Dad found out why, he froze. It started subtly, a quiet afternoon, a little boy sitting too still. But as the minutes ticked by, that stillness transformed into something terrifying. When the father finally understood what his 14-month-old son was physically protecting with his tiny hands, his blood ran cold. This wasn't a tummy ache. It was a silent scream for help. Before we unravel this heart-stopping story of parental intuition, please hit that subscribe button and like this video if you believe a parent's instinct is a superpower. Stay tuned until the end to tell us where you are watching from. The late afternoon light faded in the small apartment, casting long shadows across the living room. Usually, this time of day was a symphony of chaos, cartoons, tumbling blocks, and laughter. But today, the silence was deafening. David sat on the edge of the gray sofa, pulling nervously at the sleeves of his beige knit sweater. Beside him sat his 14-month-old son, Liam. Liam looked adorable in his green striped shirt and brown trousers, but he wasn't acting like himself. Usually a whirlwind of energy, today he was a statue. His head was bowed, chin touching his chest. But it was his hands that drew David's attention. His two small hands were pressed firmly, almost violently against his midsection. He wasn't rubbing his tummy. He was holding it, protecting it like a fragile secret. "Hey, buddy," David whispered, trying to sound playful. "You playing a game with Daddy?" Liam didn't giggle. He didn't look up. He just pressed harder, his knuckles turning white. A soft sound escaped his lips, a rhythmic, low-pitched whimper. It was a sound of endurance, not complaint. David reached out, his hand hovering near Liam's knee. "Let me see, Liam. Does your tummy hurt?" The moment David's fingers grazed the green shirt, Liam's eyes shot open, wide with panic. He gasped and immediately slapped his hands over his father's, pinning them against his stomach. He wasn't pushing David away. He was holding him there. It was a desperate, wordless plea. "Help me. It hurts right here." Underneath his hand, David felt Liam's abdominal muscles. They were rigid, hard as a rock. He was guarding something. "David, stop hovering."
Sarah, David's wife, walked in from the kitchen, wiping her hands on a towel. She looked exhausted. "He's probably just constipated or has gas. You've been staring at him for 20 minutes like he's a bomb. You're going to make yourself crazy." "Sarah, look at him," David said, his voice low. "This isn't gas. Look at how he's breathing." Liam's breathing was shallow and fast, nostrils flaring with every puff of air. "He's guarding himself," David insisted. "He hasn't moved his hands, not once. He is physically holding his intestines." Sarah sighed, kneeling to touch Liam's forehead. "No fever. David, don't drag us to the ER again. Remember last time we waited 6 hours for nothing? I have a huge presentation tomorrow." David looked deep into Liam's eyes. The spark was gone. The child looked exhausted, his energy draining away. David's gut screamed at him, a cold dread settling in his chest. He stood up abruptly, scooping Liam into his arms. Liam immediately curled into a tight ball against David's beige sweater, burying his face in his father's neck, hands still pressed to his stomach. "I'm taking him," David stated, grabbing the car keys. "David, seriously?" Sarah threw her hands up. "You're overreacting." "I would rather look like an idiot for overreacting than stay here and be right about something being wrong," David said firmly. "I'm not taking that risk." The drive was a blur of anxiety. Liam was terrifyingly quiet in the back seat, just that soft whimpering filling the silence. At the hospital, the waiting room was a sea of misery. David marched to the triage desk. "My son is in pain. He won't move his hands from his stomach." The nurse barely looked up. "Likely colic or a viral bug. 4-hour wait." Rage surged through David. He slammed his palm on the desk. "Did you hear me? Look at his hands. He hasn't moved them in 4 hours. He is a toddler. Toddlers don't sit still unless they are protecting an injury. Test him, now." The nurse saw the fire in David's eyes, and then she looked at the pale, sweating boy pressing his stomach. Her demeanor shifted. "Okay, come with me."
In the exam room, a junior doctor poked and prodded until Liam screamed, a high, piercing shriek. An ultrasound was ordered to pacify the father. But as the technician glided the wand over Liam's belly, her face went pale. She stopped, typed something quickly, and ran to get the radiologist. Minutes later, the senior doctor rushed in. The energy in the room shifted to code red. "Dad, listen carefully," the doctor said gravely. "Your son has an intussusception, a serious intestinal blockage where the bowel telescopes in on itself. The blood supply is being cut off." David stared, the room spinning. If you had waited another night, if you had put him to bed thinking it was gas, the tissue would have died. It could have been fatal. David collapsed against the wall, sliding to the floor. He buried his face in his hands. He had been right. An emergency procedure was performed to clear the blockage. When it was over, Liam let out a loud, angry cry, the most beautiful sound David had ever heard. Sarah arrived just as Liam was falling asleep in recovery. When the doctor explained how close they had come to tragedy, she broke down, sobbing into David's shoulder. "I'm so sorry," she choked out. "I didn't see it." "It's okay," David whispered, holding her tight. "We caught it. That's all that matters." 3 months later, the gray sofa was no longer a place of fear. Liam was bouncing on the cushions, laughing as he threw a toy block across the room. David watched him from the armchair, a book in his lap. He knew the fear would never fully go away, but he also knew he possessed a language deeper than words. He watched Liam clutch his stomach again, but this time it was from belly laughing. David smiled, knowing he would always be ready to answer the call no one else could hear. This story is a reminder. You are the expert on your child. Doctors know medicine, but you know your baby. Trust your gut. If this story touched you, please subscribe and hit the bell. And tell us in the comments, has your parental intuition ever saved the day? See you in the next video.